Yes, we'll be building a one-to-many messenger, and I'll give you a quick example of what that's going to look like when we're done. All right, now that I'm all signed up, I seeded some recipients already. So basically what this app's going to enable you to do is you can type whatever you want, and then you can click, and it will send it to multiple people. And there you go. And I sent one to myself, so you can see it show up. There you go. Simple, but it's going to get into some good stuff about models and association. So let's get started with this. I've already CD'd into my directory. Now let's make a new Rails app. I'm going to make it with Postgres, and we're going to skip the test units. I'm going to call this snap message. All right, now that we have that up and running, let's open it up in Sublime. All right, the first thing to do will be setting up the gem file and the testing suite. So I am just going to copy and paste in this gem file. You can find it all on GitHub. Then I'm going to run the bundle command. Oops, got a CD into it. All right, now let's initialize the Git repository. All right, now that we got that all set up, and you can see our testing gems right here, let's install our spec. All right, now that we have our spec going, let's configure some normal things like get rid of this warnings and require spec helper. Save that. And then next we're going to want to set up our Rails helper file. And I am going to just copy and paste what I normally use. And I'm going to comment out this devise stuff and this feature, more devise helpers, and then we'll uncomment them when we start getting into that. but also we're going to have to make a directory called support underneath spec. So let's do that. All right, now that we've made that, let's touch it, and we're going to make a file called database cleaner, and this is where the database cleaner config stuff will go. And I'm going to copy and paste this in as well. And this is basically just making sure whenever a new test suite test is being run that the database is clean and it's not remembering anything from the previous time a test was run. All right, now that we got that up and running, we should get a green test. There we go. All right, so next will be, I'm going to make a features file for Capybara. So I'm going to make a directory for that in the spec folder. And then our first spec will be user registers. So let's make that file. It's going to be called user register spec.rb. And we're going to need a require Rails helper. You know what? I'm going to hold off on this one, this spec for now. We're going to do that in a little bit. I'm going to do the homepage spec first, actually. So, touch. All right, right here we're going to do require Rails helper. And the feature is the user visits the home page, and the scenario is that they do it successfully. And when that happens, we're going to visit the root page. And we'll expect the page to have the CSS of an H1 header. All right, let's run this in RSpec. All right, well, had a little bit of a hiccup there, but basically I didn't name, I didn't put spec at the end of user visits homepage, and so it wasn't even recognizing that there was a test there. So it shows how important it is to put underscore spec at the end of the features files. Another little thing is I accidentally saved database cleaner in just the root folder, so make sure database cleaner.rb is underneath a support file inside of the spec folder. But now that we have that all running, we have a nice failing test right here. There we go. There is no root path. So let's make one. Let's generate a controller. And we'll just call this static pages. I'm going to delete this out of the helper spec. But then I'm going to go to routes. And we'll do root, static pages. And then there's going to be a root action. So now we can go to static pages controller. And we can call that root. And then if we go to the views of static pages, click a new one, and we'll call this root.html.erb. And we just need to put a h1 header in here, and we can just say hello. And we should have a passing test now. Uninitialized constant static pages controller. Statics pages. It's supposed to be static pages. Now let's run this. There we go, first passing test, so let's commit this. All right, so the next thing to do here is going to be to get some users. Can't message anybody without any users. So we're going to use the devise gem for that. And before I even install the devise gem, I'm going to write the feature for this user visits homepage, user registers spec. So let's do that. First of all, require Rails. And then inside this feature, it's going to say user registers successfully. Oh, supposed to be successfully. And to do this, we're going to have to visit the user's sign up page, which is a route automatically generated by devise. And then we're going to have to fill in the form. And we're going to be adding a username to this. And then one more is to do the password confirmation. And then after all that, we're going to want to click a button called sign up. And once all that's done, we're going to expect to have a message that says, "Welcome, you have signed up successfully." All right. That should do it for that, and we should get a nice failing test when we run this. There we go. So it's getting hit first with that the route right here does not exist. So let's start out by creating some users. Let's use the device generators and get this going. So first of all, the device gem is already in the gem file and we've already bundled it. So now I can just run rails g device install. All right, now if we look at this, I can skip number 1, and number 2, we see that we already have a root action, so we got that down. Alerts, so we need to build some alerts. We can do that right now. So go to open up application.html, and I'm just gonna copy in my little thing that I usually use. All right, now that we have the Flash messages in place right there, we're all done with number 3. Number 4, we don't need to worry about because we're using Rails 4. And the last one is the device views. Yeah, let's get those up. All right, and we got those views now. The last thing to do is Rails generate devise, and then user is going to be what our model is. All right, let's rake db migrate. There we go. I'm just going to commit this quick. All right, now that we got the user model up and running and everything, let's, the next step will be adding some messages. So let's get started with that. All right, so first with messages, we should probably create the model. Let's do that. And the way this is going to be set up is we're going to have 2 different tables. One of them is going to be called messages, and it's going to hold the actual content of the message, and then it's going to hold the sender's ID, so whoever makes the message. And then we're going to have another table called recipients, and the recipients table is going to have a message ID so that it knows which message to point to, and then it's going to have a user ID, and it's going to know which messages to deliver to which users. So let's create that, and we can see what that looks like, and then we'll get into the association. I'm going to call where the content goes body. And that's it for that one. Migrate that. All right, and then for the recipients table, you're going to have a message ID. And a user ID. And we'll migrate this too. All right, now that we have the tables built, let's look at what the schema looks like. So these are our tables. Now we're gonna go into the models and we're gonna make what's called has many through. So it's basically saying a user can have many messages right here through recipients. And this is to somewhat optimize how things are stored. So this is just going to be a bunch of numbers. This will be a number, this will be a number, and it's going to point to who the user is, this user ID, and the message ID is going to point to which message. So that's how the one-to-many sending is going to work. So let's make some associations. First, we'll open up the user. All right. And this is we're gonna say has many messages, and then I'm going to tell it explicitly what the foreign key is, since it's not exactly following naming conventions. And the foreign key for this is sender ID. And that's going to point to, that's going to tell Rails who created the message, so it knows who the owner is. All right, that's all that goes in this model. Up next is we'll do messages, or message, the message model. All right, and this is going to have quite a few. So we'll do belongs to sender, which was that sender ID. And this is where it links up to. We'll say class name is user. And that's basically just going to tell them, look for sender ID in the user model, what we just wrote before. The next is a has many recipients. And then another has many, and it's going to be users And what's different about this is we're going to tell it to go through the recipients table to do that. All right, so we got that up and running. I'll I'll add some validations here right now as well. So we're going to validate sender ID, or make sure presence is true. And then we'll validate that the body's there as well. And that's it for that for now. We'll come back. We'll add one more little thing, but I'll talk about that once we get further in. So the next thing is recipients. All right, this one is going to be belongs to message and belongs to user. And let's validate that the user ID is present. All right, that should be good for our associations. We now have now we can do one-to-many messages. Before we go any further into the controllers or anything, I want to write some unit tests in the model. So let's write some tests for each of these. We'll start with user. This should be pretty easy. So describe user. Oops. It should have many messages. All right, we're good with that one, but first let me make sure these factories are set up right. So basically we're just setting this up and it gives it a random faker email from the faker gem. And the password is 123456788. So we got that factory good. So I'm going to change this up a little bit. So I'm actually going to take off this message ID so it's not explicitly telling it every single time. I'm going to take that off too, because it knows the association for those ones. So we've got that, and we've got that. Now let's look at message, and I'm going to leave the sender ID one. And that actually looks good. And that's good. So the next one, let's write a message spec. So we're going to describe message. First, let's make sure it has a valid factory. You know what? I forgot to do this for for user as well. So copy and paste that in and just change this to user. All right, now we're going to write the association test right here. So we're saying it should belong to sender, and since we had to specifically tell it which class it belonged to, so we have to tell that in the test as well right here. And then we're just going to say it should have many recipients. That's it for that one. And then it should have many users, and then through recipients. And then we'll have to write the validation ones. Should validate the presence of sender ID. And it should validate the presence of body. All right, got some more tests done. Now, there is one left, and that is recipients test. All right, let's describe this. Recipient. Let's make sure it has a valid factory. And we'll write the test. Should belong to user. Should belong to message. And it should validate presence of user ID. All right, we got all those written. Let's run a test. Hopefully these are all passing. Otherwise, we got some spelling errors. Oh, that's so all of those tests we just wrote are passing, but we're still getting one that says user/signup get route. Let's look at that. No route matches. Get user sign up. Oh, that's because it says user sign up and it should say users. So let's fix that. This should be users. Now if we run it again. Unable to find field name, username. All right, good. So I'm gonna commit this right now. But that's an easy fix because we have to add username field to the user table. All right, so to add the username field, we have to customize devise a little bit. The first thing we're gonna have to do is create a what's called a registration controller. So let's do that. I'm just gonna touch it so I don't create a bunch of extra files. So touch app/controllers / registrations. All right, we got that up and going. Registrations controller. And I will just copy and paste this in. This is kind of, so right here, we're basically whitelisting. So whenever you sign up, you're allowed to insert username. And whenever you update, you're allowed to insert username. So now username is allowed to be mass assigned. Now that we have that, we need to go to our routes and change the devise for to something. It looks like that. And that's basically saying devise for users and use the controller registrations. And then it will whitelist user. So our test still isn't going to pass yet, and that is because we haven't added username to the users table. So let's do that. So Rails-G migration, add username to users, and username is a string. Break db migrate. Check the schema. There we go, we got username right there. Cool. So let's run rspec now and see what this does. All right, unable to find field. That's because we have to customize the views of devise right here. So new. And I am just gonna do that. Pretty much use this for all of my apps. It's the same form. But you can copy that down. Basically just reformats it so I can do some centering with these, and then it's just adding the username field right here. So with that, we're also going to want to, actually that should be good. We're not going to worry about the edit page. Just making a simple app. But if we run this now, password confirm. Oh, looks like I have a typo in here. Password confirm, and it's supposed to be with. Now let's try this. Oh, need a comma. All right, everything's passing. Let's commit this. All right, we got all that committed. We tested that users can sign in. We can go to the home page and whatnot. Now we need to create the, now it is time to create the messages controller. But before we get into any of that fun stuff, I am going to write a capybara feature test for a user creates a message. So let's do that. Let's touch that file. We're going to call this user creates message spec.rb. And we're going to require Rails helper. And in this feature, we say user creates a new message. And the scenario is successfully. And let's start by start right here. We'll say so we're gonna need to make a user with factory girl. We're gonna have to log in a user. Actually, we're gonna have to create 2 users to test that we can select more than one and send it to them. And then we'll fill in the body. We'll do 2 check marks to check them, right? Like so. And then we'll submit it. So let's do that. Start with this user equals factory girl. And then I'm going to create a second user. And this is to demonstrate the one-to-many messaging. So now we're going to log in as user. And now let's visit the root path, which I'm going to change in a little bit. Your root path is going to be your messages index. All right, now that you have that, we'll be on the root path, and we're going to create the header too, which is going to have a new link like this, and an inbox, and a logout. So we'll pretend that exists right now. So click on new, and now we're going to do fill in. It'll be called message. With body. We'll just fill it in with, I'll just put body goes here. And then this part is the, so now we're going to have to simulate checking these. So let's do that. Check. We're going to check user. And I'll explain a little bit of what I'm doing right here, but I'll have to show you once we start making the views. Basically, I named, I named the class of each one of these cells so that it increments. So this will be called like user1 will be like the ID name. So let's look at that. All right, right here. So label for user2. And the ID is user2. So in order to simulate that in the test, so it knows which slot to choose, I'm saying user and then plus user.id, and you have to do toString. So then that's going to end up saying find ID user2 and check it. So let's do that one more time. All right, we got that. And let's expect, actually we don't have to do that right now. And then click on submit. And then the last thing is our expectations. So now we're gonna expect the page to have content message sent. All right, we should have a pretty massively failing test right now. All right, that's because we don't have the devise helpers. So let's go to our Rails helper file, uncomment that, and we can start using these as well. Now we should get some different errors. Unable to find link new. All right, that's because we don't have the header yet. So let's make a header with links and whatnot. So if I go to layouts, new file, underscore header.html.erb. And I've already got a header made. I'll just go over this quick. So this is basically saying header. We got a nice little logo right here that says snap message. And then saying if the user is signed in, show these links. New inbox, log out. Else, if the user is not logged in, all they can do is sign in or register. Simple enough. Now that we have that, we need to render it in here. So all right, now that we rendered that, we can run rspec again. All right, we got some new errors. This is good. Undefined local variable, new message path. All right, this is because we don't have a message controller yet. Undefined variable method, new message path. Yep. So let's make a messages controller. Rails G controller messages. First things first, delete this thing. And go to the messages controller. All right. This whole app, you're gonna have to be logged in to do anything. So I'll just put a before action and say authenticate user. And if you're not familiar with Devise, this is a built-in helper. It just makes sure that the user is logged in before it can do anything. So we have this controller made, but let's get the routes down that we're gonna use first. So I'm not gonna make a ton of routes or anything. I'm just gonna do pretty basic. You can add more if you want more functionality to your messages. We're gonna do a create. We're gonna do a new. And we're going to do an index. So first things first. All right. We'll just do, we'll do a new action. We'll say at message equals message dot new. And that's gonna make it so we can create the new message form. And then to the heck. All right, and then in order to get this list of users right here to show up as well, we're gonna just do users.all. And these are all of the recipients you have to choose from. So I'll do at recipients. User.all. All right, now that new page is done, we can move on. Next, we'll do the create action. The message is going to be current user dot messages dot build message params. So we got that. Let's build the message params quick, actually. Params.require message and permit. We're going to permit body and we're going to permit sender ID. Then lastly, we're going to permit what's called user tokens. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about user tokens in a second. So user tokens is going to be an array, and user tokens is basically the user ID of each of these selected. So user tokens is so for example, it would say, I selected this, I selected Lucille, I selected this one, And each of these ones is a token, and that token of the ID of who it's going to be sent to is stored inside what's called user tokens right there. So we got that. As long as I'm still doing this, 1 second. So in order for that to happen, we're also going to need to make a little method in here called user tokens, and it's going to be equals IDs. And then we're going to do self dot user IDs equals IDs, and this is how it identifies the user ID to grab, and then it puts it into the array as a token. So then they're all sent in one go. So all the messages are made for people at once. So it's not sending a message to each person multiple times. It's just one time sent out. So we got that made. Let's finish this create. So if message dot save and here's our success message sent, and we'll redirect to the root path. Which I have to change. Then we'll do a flash. I'll just put whatever if something happens. It will also render new again. So we got that there. And one last one, might as well just make the index quick. So for the index, to show the right users, we're going to say the messages you want to display are found in recipient.where user ID is current user dot ID. So that's going to find all the messages that belong to the current user and no more. And then we'll do dot order created at, and this is kind of hackish way just to do the newest are posted first. So we got all our endpoints in now. Let's run rspec and see where we're at. Missing template. All right, that means we're getting somewhere. Now we need to make the views. So let's do that. And actually at this point, all right, at this point I can run, I'll get the Rails server up and running. All right, look at this ugly thing we got going on here. Let me register a new user quick. All right, we'll make up a username, say butter muffins. Welcome. And we got our things here. And this looks pretty bad. Before we really get into that, I'm going to copy and paste in some styles and whatnot. And for those, I am using bourbon, neat, and refills. And if you don't know about these, this is SCSS mix-ins right here, bourbon. And then neat is some a grid framework. And refills is just some already made things you can generate. So I'll do that quick. Actually, the fastest way. All right, now I got all my style sheets. You can find this all on GitHub. So this is what a thing called bitters will make all of these automatically. If you look into bitters gem more, but you can, if you have these gems in place, you can just copy and paste all this stuff in. And then basically got some form layouts that I've already built, and then how the message is going to look. And then these are just the flashes. So things should be looking pretty good now. All right, that looks a lot better. Now, let's, I gotta change I'm gonna change the route right here. The root is gonna be messages, and then index. Ooh, the template doesn't exist. Let's make it. Now it exists. Boom. All right. I guess we can just make this one first. This index action. All right, this should be simple enough. I'm just gonna copy and paste in this view, but I'll go over it with you. So basically here, we'll start with this. This just makes sure it's centered for the messages, and then we're saying at messages from the, where's the messages controller? Saying at messages, so we're getting that, and we're iterating through it. And this is saying message.message.body. And the reason why it says message.message is, so it's called, so this right here, we're calling it message. And then we actually have to call the dot message and then go to the body. So if I name this something else, it would be, say I named it user, it'd be user.message.body. And then right here, this is grabbing the sender, whoever sent the message, and it's going to display their username. Let's see what that looks like. Well, we don't have any messages made, so it doesn't do anything right now, but it works. So we'll be good with that one now. Let's, we can make the new action. And let's make the new. And it's just going to be that. And then we're going to render messages / recipients. And so we're going to have to make a file for that. So we got the recipients made. Let me just go over this with you. This is the form. So this is probably the trickiest part of the view. This will be, this is what this is going to be. This multiple select, and we're going to be creating the dynamic IDs like this right here. And we'll be sending in the tokens, an array of tokens. So basically, form for message, URL is messages path, so we're posting it, and text area body, placeholder message, which you can see will go right there. And then putting this in something called stream list, just an ID. All right, right here is the recipients list. So this right here is where you write your message, and then this right here, we're saying recipients.each do user, and so right here, this is what this recipients is right here. We're getting all the users, so then we can select which ones we want to send it to. So this is the list. This is the list right here that we're making. And this is using, it's called checkbox tag. So this is so you can do multiple select. And to do that, we're saying message, and then we're doing user tokens. And we're saying it's an array of, you can have an array of user tokens right there. So this is going to have any number of people's user IDs. All right. And then right here, ID, user ID, this is that dynamic ID created. And it's just using interpolation right here. And so some of these other things are creating creating stuff like value too. That's just useful for having multiple checkboxes, so you can identify which what the token is. So we're passing that in right here. But then after that, it's got the submit button, and that's let's see what this looks like. Look at that. So this is it. I need to if you want to test it out with so if you want to test it out with more than, without making like without making a bunch of users by hand, you can just do this. Just copy and paste something like this in, and this is basically just making 15 users. So then it'll populate it with that. So now that I have that, actually if I run rake db reset, this is gonna delete everything that was in the database before, and it's gonna run the seeds again, which I probably didn't need to do. I could have just run rake db seed, but It's a good thing to know this. Now I'm not going to be logged in or anything either. Yep, there we go. Oh, I gotta sign up. All right, see, now I have all these people I can send stuff to. So say this is a message. Boom, boom, boom. Sent. I didn't send one to myself, so I can't see any of them. But if I did that again and I sent it to myself, now I get a message. All right, even though like most of this is built right now, I think another good thing to do would be write a test for the controller and modularize the tests a little bit. So let's do that. 1 second. Actually, I'm going to run RSpec quick and see where we're at. Find H. All right, yeah. So we'll fix that in a second, but I gotta add this. All right, so now let's fix this error first before we write a controller test. We'll fix this H1 error because we redid what the route is. So in order to do this, we're gonna have to do a couple things actually. All right, user visits home page. So we'll visit route path, but before we even do that, we need to I'm gonna make a helper method because we're gonna have a bunch of messages on the home page. So let's make sure that those exist. And to do that, I'm going to build, go to support. Actually, I'm going to make a directory. Support/features. Spec. Gotta do spec. All right, and then touch that. Touch spec/support. We'll call this message helper. And basically here we're taking, we're going to take this and we're going to put it into a module so we can use it more than once. So we'll take that, take this, and we'll replace it with create message. The message will be hello world. So now that we have that, we gotta create the message in here, which I'm just gonna copy and paste this quick so I don't lose it. But basically, we'll make a module called features. And this is where the create message is going to be. And it takes in a body. So now we can put this inside there. All right, so we got that, but now we need to tell Rails helper that it's all right to use a features module right there. So let's try that out quick. Defined age. Oh yeah, it's because of that. So this test is passing. Now we need this one. So we're gonna expect it to have. We'll expect it to have CSS of dot message, which is a class for each message, like where each it's what each one of these is called. This whole little box thing. So if that exists, that means there's messages there, and we're good. Unable to find unexpected. Oh, that's because we're still visiting just root path. So what we need is this. And if you go like that, that creates the messages. And it will automatically, it should go back to root path anyways, but I'm just going to explicitly say visits root path. Now let's run that. Look at that, all passing. So now we're done with feature testing. So after committing that, we got all those bad boys done. The last thing is, we can actually delete that one. And we got this right here. So I'm going to start with describe messages controller. All right, I'm just going to test the create action on this one because that's where all the complexity is. You can always write as many tests as you want. So describe, and it's going to be a post action called create. And then the context of if it is with valid attributes. Do, we're going to do this before each, we're going to create a user from the factory girls. Then we're going to sign them in. Now we're going to make the message. We're going to say post, and it's called create. And then inside message, attributes for that message are going to be message from the factory girls. And then our expectation is that message.count will go up by 1. So it will equal 1. And then it's also going to redirect to the root page. So once again, post. Actually, you can copy and paste this right here. Do that, and then expect. Expect the response to redirect to root path. Let's run this in RSpec quick. Oh, what do we got failing? Undefined user. That's because we're missing an equal sign. All right, we got that one made. Let's commit this quick. Now we just need to make one for when it's invalid. So let's do that. Context with invalid attributes do for each do. Actually, we can just copy and paste this right here. All right, it re-renders the new action. No, that's not. We're not to that one yet. It creates an invalid message. And in order to create an invalid message, we're going to have to leave the body blank. So to do that, we do message. Oops, need to make it a symbol. Message, and then we're going to set body to nil because that's not allowed. We've got a validation for that not to be allowed. So then expect message.count to be 0. All right. Now also it should, if it fails, it should re-render the new view. I can take that right there. So got that. Now expect response to render template new. Let's run this in RSpec. And everything's passing, and just need to commit this. All right, now that we got everything up and running, check out the app. All right, so now you can see that now you know how to make one-to-many messaging, and you could bring this messaging a lot further. You could do inboxes, you could make like a whole email type thing, but this is just a very simple example of how you do one-to-many messaging, which you can add to any. It's just a nice social feature to know how to do. So we got that done, and that's a wrap for this video. Thanks for watching.